The Dark Lady is a new musical about Emilia Bassano, who was a 16th century feminist poet. Some suspect that Emilia was Shakespeare's Dark Lady or the subject of his Dark Lady sonnets, and others suspect that she could be the true author of Shakespeare's works.
So this show is that what if scenario. What if she were the true author of Shakespeare's plays? How did that happen? How did those plays get written? Some speculate that she was plagiarized by Shakespeare, but we speculate that a woman of that time who was so bold and passionate would have taken matters into her own hands. Women weren't allowed to write plays at that time, so we think that she would have orchestrated the deal with Shakespeare, putting his name on her plays in order for her plays to be seen. So that is the subject of The Dark Lady, and it is a fun journey of discovery.
Sophie and I started writing this piece a few years ago now, and we were really inspired by Emilia and her story and wanted to tell the story of a woman who was not a victim, but of someone who took charge when her work couldn't be seen because her plays couldn't be published at the time. So we were very interested in the idea of Emilia and Shakespeare making a deal, and that Emilia is really the puppet master in all of this. She's the one who made all this happen and was not victimized at all. And a story about what happens when your dream or what you want comes at the sacrifice of yourself and your integrity. And what does that mean? When are you willing to draw the line?
We wrote one song called Shake On It Shakespeare. It was this big 8-minute epic depicting the deal between Will and Emilia, whereby she suggests he put his name on her plays. It basically covered the entire plot of the show, and we had so much fun writing it, and we fell in love with those characters, and we just knew that we had to write more.
These roles are super interesting and challenging for actors because we have Shakespeare's characters coming to life, right? We've got Kate, Lady Macbeth, Juliet, and Viola sort of telling the story now in 2024 because they exist forever.
Obviously, these roles have been depicted on stage and across media numerous times, but in this show we think they're being depicted differently to before. Will, for example, he is a young stable boy, which is historically accurate. He's very boyish and charming, but flawed and human. He's gentle but ego-driven, and he makes some bad choices. And then there's the muses. We call them the muses. They are the women that Emilia writes. So Lady Macbeth, Viola, Juliet, and Kate. And in this show, those muses, they are theatrical shapeshifters. So they become members of the ensemble. They become men of the court or Lord Chamberlain's men, noblemen, you name it. So for the actors playing the muses, they end up actually playing hundreds of roles, which is challenging, but hopefully a lot of fun.
But also it's a very musically challenging show with sort of spoken word and pop and classical and synth, electronic music. There's just a lot of material that we're asking these characters or these actors to bring. So it's very exciting for us to get to see that happen. We think the show is very relevant to today. We were very inspired by Emilia's story, mostly because of social media and how, we are all presenting our best selves to the public. We are all sort of crafting and curating these images of ourselves that we want the world to see. And when it comes to Emilia's story, she has to ask herself that question of how does the world see her, and what is that worth? And Shakespeare asks himself that same question as well. And so we feel it's very relevant, and it's a question we've all been asking ourselves for ages of, how does it matter how people see us if that's not who we really are? And is that really worth anything? What is it worth to be seen? So these are all lots of questions that are sort of surrounding the work, and just because it starts in 1588 doesn't mean it's not relevant to 2024. In fact, we think it's now that we really should be seeing this work.
What we want to ask is, what's more important? What matters most? Is it how you are known? Is it the likes and the followers that you have? Or is it what you do?
The development process when writing a musical is super intense, and so we're super grateful to be able to come to South Carolina and get to really delve into that process. We have been so lucky to have had some other developmental opportunities. The first one being at the National Music Theater Conference at the Eugene O'Neill, and that was 2 weeks of crazy intense. And since then, many other developmental opportunities. So this is our 6th draft that we're showing in South Carolina. And I'm sure it's not the last. Musicals are never perfect. We just at some point have to stop writing.
Sometimes it can feel like banging your head against the wall, but most of the time it's completely thrilling, and I wish I could do it every day and spend the rest of my life doing it. I'm excited to see Greenville. I've heard it's beautiful, and I'm very excited to be back in a room with creatives and actors to get our characters back to life again, because I've missed them. And Veronica and I have done a lot of work on this since the last time it was in front of an audience, so I'm most excited to see how those changes go down and if everybody is as moved and affected as we hope they will be.